evening, and thanks for tuning in to Season 2 of Laced Up, a sports show produced entirely by women, from behind the scenes to on air. But it's not just for women, it's for the guys too. I'm Rachel Hallam.
And I'm Sydney Wicker. We have so much to talk about in the next 30 minutes, including a look into what a local Nuggets broadcaster is doing off the court, a professor who's created a program for athletes to use their voices, another week of disrupted picks, and a story that reminds us all what we should truly be thankful for. But first, Rachel, some unfortunate breaking news earlier today from CSU Football.
That's right, Sydney. Unfortunately, the game against UNLV this weekend has been canceled for CSU due to the fact that the Rebels have found multiple positive COVID cases within their department.
Now, Rachel, this is only rumors that I heard, but they are saying CSU and CU could possibly play each other since CSU doesn't have a game this weekend either. That's not official, but we'll have to see. I know myself, I wouldn't mind a Rocky Mountain Showdown this week.
Absolutely. That would be very interesting, especially because we didn't have it this year. So,
exactly.
Yes, that would be great. Well, this week, the CSU Athletics Department continues to receive criticism from its student athletes for what the athletes are calling a mistreatment of sexual misconduct victims. According to the Coloradoan, several current and former female student athletes have come forward to voice their anger towards the department. They're making their concerns public as a show of unity and solidarity. They have made it known to the athletics department that administrators of the department have failed to notify the university's Title IX compliance office of reported incidents, have delayed Title IX investigations, and have attempted to persuade some athletes against filing reports, placing the victim at a continued risk with promised action that never came. With other issues like the investigation into the department regarding COVID-19 protocols with the football program and the racial issues that spread throughout campus, and the response the university had to the sexual assault lawsuit against the university from student Katie Schiller last month, these students felt they had to go public and voice their concerns. Now, in response to these claims, the university has yet to allow anyone to be interviewed on this topic, but has stated that all sexual misconduct and interpersonal violence complaints referred to the Title IX office are addressed promptly. Earlier this afternoon, CSU President Joyce McConnell released the call to action for the university's athletics department. And in the statement released regarding Action 1 of the recommendations of the independent investigation report, it is recommended that CSU establish a system for student athletes to report any sort of concern to an employee outside the athletics department, including external university representatives like the Vice President for Equity, Equal Opportunity, and Title IX.
Switching gears to basketball, Tuesday, the Mountain West released a revised schedule for both men's and women's basketball. As the season is still projected to play, it is right around the corner. The Rams will play a Mountain West Conference schedule only with 2 games, 1 day apart, against the same opponent, and then have at least a 1-week break in between the contests. This new schedule will include a 5 home game series and a 5 road game series, which will help reduce the risk and any exposure to COVID-19. Women's basketball head coach Ryan Williams told CSU Athletics, the aspect of playing teams back-to-back creates an interesting challenge in terms of turnaround and adjustments and play. But that will be new, but we look forward to it. Most of the games for this season will air on CBS Sports or Fox Sports, and the times for the games will be announced as soon as the season draws closer.
Speaking of women breaking barriers in sports, Rose Carter got to sit down with an NBA reporter to talk about what all she is doing on and off the court. Rose?
Well, Rachel and Sydney, before she could really even walk, Nuggets' first female analyst, Katie Wingy, was dunking on a mini hoop. From 3rd grade to college, Katie's life has always been basketball. Now she's still on the court, but telling stories instead of hooping. Don't worry, she still takes shots when she is on the court when she gets a chance.
It is truly like a sisterhood.
On October 18th, 2018, Katie Wingy was stepping out onto the court at Ball Arena for the first time. But she wasn't alone as she was welcomed to Denver by well-known Rockies reporter Jenny Kavnar.
First female analyst in Nuggets basketball history. Katie, I can't wait to watch and hear you all season long.
And one of the NBA's most familiar faces, Doris Burke.
Along with everyone else, extend along my congratulations on your new role covering the Denver Nuggets.
To have, women like Jenny Kavnar and Doris Burke in your corner or supporting you, it just means the world, because those two are 2 pioneers in this sports media industry that I wouldn't be able to do what I do without them doing what they do.
In 3rd grade, Katie found herself on the court which is a place she never left. She then found herself practicing her TV skills for her elementary school broadcast. She always knew what she wanted to do from a young age.
Basketball for me was how I built my confidence as a person, as a woman in a male-dominated industry as well, and kind of finding my voice and navigating through being a tomboy and what that looks like and playing against the boys. And so I knew that I wanted to be somebody that young girls in Denver could look up to and could see, okay, if I want to be a basketball player, Katie played college basketball, like that's totally possible. That's something I can do. I love the Nuggets. I would love to be able to, work for the Nuggets or cover the Nuggets down the road, whatever that might look like, or just work in the NBA. Maybe they want to be a coach. To see a woman kind of paving the way, it makes your belief in yourself that much stronger.
Katie knew she wanted to continue to pave the way on the court. With a historically low number of 50% of girls dropping out of sports by 8th grade, Katie wanted to help change that stat in Denver. So Nike and the Nuggets partnered up to create Nike's Game Growers, which is creating a conversation with 7th and 8th grade girls to get more girls to play sports and to stay in sports. And Katie quickly joined on as an ambassador.
But you learn so many life skills from being an athlete and playing sports, especially at that age. So I'm just working with some of those girls, listening to their ideas as to how we can keep girls in these types of programs. If they need more access, if they, need more support in any way, shape, or form, how can we do that for them?
Even though Katie is advocating for young girls in sports and really women all over the broadcast field, she leans on the support she gets from the guys too.
It takes a village, it really does. And I would say that even having some of the support of the guys that I've had has been just as important, if not more important, because it is such a male-dominated industry. So when you earn that respect and they're able to speak, in support of you or in a way that lifts you up, it means a whole lot.
Katie also said in her interview that the players she works with respect her even more when they find out she was a former hooper herself. But Sydney, I think one of the coolest things is how she uses her platform to keep young girls in sports.
Absolutely. I didn't even know that there was a Game Growers in Denver, so it's so cool to see all that they're doing. Continuing on with women breaking barriers, this week the New Orleans Pelicans shook up their staff by promoting Teresa Weatherspoon to an assistant coaching position. She now joins women like Becky Hammond, Brittany Donaldson, and Sonia Rahman as one of 8 women in an assistant coaching role in the NBA. Weatherspoon is no stranger to the court as she led her college team, Louisiana Tech, to the NCAA championship. She also spent some time in the WNBA with her team, the New York Liberty. She took them to their first ever WNBA finals. She was also named Defensive Player of the Year in 1997. After retiring with the LA Sparks, she was inducted into the 2010 Hall of Fame, and she also ranks 12th in all-time assists. Weatherspoon took to Instagram by saying, "Nobody can remove you or take your place when God has solidified and glorified your position and destination. So grateful to be able to join this journey with the Pelicans."
For the first time since 2014, the United States women's national soccer team has named a sister duo to this year's team. Both Christy and Sam Mewis will be a part of the roster for their final game of 2020 and just their first game in 261 days as they look to take on the Netherlands on November 27th. The pair are now just the second pair of sisters to play for the U.S. women's national team after twins Lori and Ronnie Fair played together back in the late 90s. Back in 2014, the Mewis sisters were also the only duo on the team during the Algarve Cup, but since then have yet to play with each other. Samantha continued to be to play with the national team, but Christy hasn't been back on the same field with the rest of the team since that Algarve Cup. Now, the two midfielders, along with the rest of the 23 women who have been named to the lineup, are looking forward to playing next Friday at Raadverleg Stadium in Breeden, Netherlands.
Well, coming up later in the show, Rachel and I bring you another week of disrupted picks from our at-home studios. Plus, I bring you into a story about a Loveland athlete who takes his disabilities into an ability to do, well, just about anything.
But first, Angel Cooper, you got to sit down with a former CSU Ram and Super Bowl champ to talk about what he has done and is doing at CSU.
That's right, Rachel. Dr. Albert Bemper Jr. started the Diversity and Inclusion program here at CSU. And before he even graduated from CSU, he knew that helping students was in his blood. I sit down with him to talk about the program and how it started and where is it going. Don't go anywhere.
Dad?
Just 1 minute, okay?
Hey, Bobo, do trees tell each other stories?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, why don't we go find out? Listen.
Do clouds take naps?
I couldn't tell you.
Can birds draw pictures?
I don't have an answer for that.
Dad, do stars visit their friends?
Look. The Diversity and Inclusion Program here at CSU is all about creating a campus environment that welcomes everyone. The CSU Senior Associate Athletic Director for Diversity and Inclusion, Dr. Albert Bemper Jr., brought this program to life. From a Super Bowl ring to the classroom, Dr. Bemper's journey first started at Purdue.
Many of them that I talked to in the weight room was like my barbershop when I had hair. And so in between lifts and so forth, it was this great opportunity to kind of hear their experiences. And I found out that, like, for them living in West Lafayette, Indiana at this Big Ten institution wasn't far from my experience at Colorado State and Fort Collins, right? They were having to navigate the space too. And so the conversation we would have, again, gave me more direction on like purpose and impact. So when the NFL was over for me, I knew exactly what I wanted to go back into, and it was much more around education.
When you were hired at CSU and they brought you in to start this diversity inclusion program, what was the first thing you wanted to do?
It became a lot of hearing the experiences of the current students. I didn't want to lead with my experience, particularly at this institution where I played at, should guide and dominate my perspective. I should hear where the students were, 5, 6, 7, 10 years later from, did we progress? Did we fall backwards? Like, where were we? What programs existed? So there was much more of this kind of inventory moment and assessment, listening to the current stories of student athletes, finding out what they need. The institution had changed in so many different ways. And then I came to find out that it had it at times too. So all of that was this kind of moment of trying to gather as much information as I could.
So why is this important for you to bring up those big conversations in a classroom?
It's about education. I think the most fundamental way in which we change as a society, as we change as individuals, make progress as communities, is that we have to, learn from the past, learn who we were, learn how we got here, and understand, right, with greater nuance, kind of how history and how the present has unfolded. So, that's kind of this true educator response. But I believe in the power of education, and I believe in the power of conversation. So, conversation meaning that we have dialogue and it's mutual, kind of engagement, not one-sided, just us listening to the other, but us listening intentionally, and having empathy of someone else's experience. I think all that happens with our conversations and opportunities for dialogue.
This has been a really hard year for the Black community. I know CSU had created a ton of platforms for athletes to use their voices. What have you done to help create environments for them to have an important conversation?
One that really comes to mind is I've really enjoyed Jada Pinkett and her Red Table Talk.
Yes.
So, you didn't think I was going to go there. So one of the things that we actually just launched for our student athletes, and particularly for our women of color in the athletic department, our student athletes, is we call them Green Table Talks. And so there are these opportunities for just our student athletes, and we just held one, I believe last week, for our female student athletes to come across, come to this Red Table Talk virtually, and and have discussion and see where it goes and let them just participate in that. We had women, from various sports. We had staff members that logged in and got to hear that. So that's one of the kind of new ventures, I guess, opportunities. We're trying to, one, just have conversation and not let it be so rigid, right? Say it has to have a curriculum to it. And so just kind of where does the conversation go?
Creating a space like the green table for athletes to feel comfortable and just talk shows how much has happened, but they're still looking to grow. To view the full interview with Dr. Bemper, and you can head to CTV Channel 11 on YouTube. But before we take a quick break, Rachel, what's coming up next?
Well, Angel, recently ESPN reporter Molly Mcgrath has been in the headlines for standing up against the hate she has been receiving for working while pregnant.
Plus, Kim Ng recently got hired as the Marlins GM. We dive into what this means for women in sports coming up next in Disruptive Picks. You don't want to miss it.
Awkward. Do I look familiar? I should. You might remember me from here. Here. Or maybe even here.
But an awkward silence can be a great thing.
It can actually be a perfect moment to reach out to a friend and ask if they're okay if they seem down.
Doesn't matter how you say it.
You all right?
Everything's okay?
All G?
You all right, girl?
Oh,
You cool?
you bugging dog.
Just show you're there for them.
Go on, Kelly. Susie Awkward.
Hey, you haven't really been yourself lately. Are you okay?
Find out how you can help a friend with their mental health at seizetheawkward.org.
Welcome back to our last installment of Disrupted Picks for this semester. I'm Rachel Hallam, joined today by Allie Small, Sydney Wicker, and Allie Price. Let's just jump right into it. We're going to talk about Molly Mcgrath, who's an ESPN sideline reporter. She just entered her third trimester of her pregnancy, and she's still working constantly. And recently, she's received some criticism for working through her pregnancy, especially so late into her pregnancy. Now she's kind of let some of those comments get to her. Sydney, let's start with you. How do you think that she handled this situation?
I think she's handling this situation the best that she can. I couldn't imagine being in her shoes and dealing with hate, but she's just trying to be as confident as she can. I know with pregnancy, it probably can be really easy to get unconfident with everything that happens and goes on, but to be honest, 8 in 10 women work while pregnant. That's 82% of women. And I got that stat from Pew Research Center. And to see how many women are really working while pregnant, first of all, that is so crazy and so cool that they're pushing themselves to do it, but also just shows how strong these women are. And the thing that I love about Molly and all that she's done is she's really brought other mothers in the sports industry together. I know she started a hashtag working mamas and hashtag love the belly, and women all across the sports industry are sharing their photos of their time being pregnant. Jenny Kavnar, Colorado Rockies reporter, also participated in it, and she said in her tweet, "I love telling my son that he was with me broadcasting a playoff run in 2017, and he was born 7 days later." So I just think that's so cool seeing all of their stories come together and seeing how these women are relating and really supporting Molly.
I think that this whole situation is it's so beautiful to see all these women coming together and that it all started within the sports industry. And the fact that it's revolving around pregnancy and the fact that this is kind of still an issue in 2020, that working in your third trimester is apparently an issue. I remember back in elementary school, all my years throughout school, I had a lot of teachers who ended up being pregnant and they were working well into their third trimester and they didn't even get time off until probably a couple days before their due date. And it's either because they went into labor or that's all that they had time left for.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything you guys are saying. I mean, she talks about it too. She's proud to be a pregnant woman working full time still. And even in this situation that we have going on with coronavirus, still so prominent in our nation, like working in the first place is so hard for a lot of people right now. For her to be doing this while pregnant, I mean, she's still got to be out there working her butt off with her husband too. I mean, it's just cool. And she says that she wouldn't change a thing, any circumstance whatsoever. She's already working such a hard job with a sideline reporter, so much travel, so much time on her feet. So for her to be doing this while pregnant, it's just incredible.
I just want to say, I think she should be applauded by everyone for what she's doing. I think what she's doing is amazing, beyond the hashtag. And you know what? No one knows one's body like themselves. And I think we should let women who are pregnant make that decision, because ultimately, pregnancy can't stop women from working and being able to provide for their child and their family that's about to come as one.
Absolutely. I love what you said there, Allie Small. I think that's so important for us to remember. But moving on to another woman who is also making headlines recently, Kim Ng. She was just hired as the first GM in MLB history, which is huge news. So we got to dive right into this. Rachel, why don't you start us off?
I mean, this is already so incredible. We have so many women in this industry alone that are breaking barriers constantly, especially recently. I mean, you see Jessica Mendoza is breaking more barriers too. It's just incredible to see that there's women out there that are showing that they deserve and they are so able to be in this industry that is so already male dominant and male controlled that they can't seem to break those barriers. But for Aang to actually be able to do so, and for her to come out and say, I'm bearing a trophy for so many more, that's incredible to me. She's making history for those that are watching her and who want to do almost the same thing too.
Yeah, Rachel, I agree. She has worked in the front offices of 3 of baseball's oldest franchises, which is amazing within itself. And now she is named the general manager for the Miami Marlins, which is just a huge deal. Like, I just can't emphasize that enough. That's a huge deal. And it's just a breath of fresh air. I love seeing news like this. It makes me so happy. It opens a pathway for a bunch of women and girls. I actually grabbed a quote from the Tampa Bay Times. This is Kim talking about her new position as general manager. I think that really is a testament to where we are. People are looking for hope. People are looking for inspiration, and I'm happy to be a part of it. And I'm happy that she's a part of it. I have no words for how excited I am for this news.
Allie Small, I'm so happy that she's a part of it too. I think I give so many women that work in baseball just extra credit, just strictly because I think baseball is one of the most traditional sports. So I think a lot of people have a hard time hiring women because they don't like breaking tradition. Even though I think that we should be breaking tradition all the time and seeing so many new faces, it just doesn't happen a lot. And one thing that I loved that she mentioned in an article to ESPN, she said, it made me realize that it really was a glimmer of hope and inspiration for many when she took the job. So I think just seeing how much she's really accepting this role and how excited she is to step into this position is huge for herself and also for other women to come.
Yes, Sydney, I completely agree. As an avid baseball fan, I have been waiting for this day to come. And like you were saying, baseball is so traditional, and we don't have very many women in the front office or even in the coaching staff that we can look up to in baseball yet. Like for basketball, we have Becky Hammond. For football, we have Emily Zaylor and Katie Sowers. And now we have Kim Ng for baseball. And it's just so incredible. And like I said, being just an avid baseball fan, I can't help but feeling like a sense of pride for her, and like also just looking up to her for inspiration as well.
Yes, it's so cool to see all these gains that women are making all across the world, but got to give a shout out to Kim and all that she's accomplished. Well, don't go anywhere because we'll be right back after the break. Here she comes.
Hi, Krista. Take you, Jamie, to be my wife.
The ceremony was a blast. It was just like this surreal moment of my dreams are coming true. When we found out that we were pregnant, we were just elated. We were just sitting there waiting for the pediatrician. She said, "Oh, I apologize. She won't be taking you in as a client." We are a lesbian couple, but she's just a baby. She's the one you're denying the service to. And sitting there in that small, cold room, I wanted to cry, just thinking, what did we bring this kid into?
We're simply asking to treat our family the same way that you would treat any family.
This year overall has definitely been unlike any other. And with the holidays coming up, there's no better time to reflect on what you are really thankful for. One Loveland athlete competes in sports a little differently, but he's thankful for his differences.
Go time. Go time.
Born too early, at just 26 weeks, like many other premature babies, Andrew developed a mild form of cerebral palsy, but the debilitating disease spared his twin brother.
Luckily, my brother didn't wind up getting it. And it's never been fun. But I'm glad, in the words of Frank Sinatra, my record shows I took blows and did it my way.
He's never been fazed by having to have a really big surgery or, being pushed back a little bit, because, every surgery he would take little steps forward, but then surgery would be like one big step backward. So with every surgery, it's like a little bit more backwards, but he would slowly regain the strength and get better over time.
Now his way includes having over 50 surgeries with no cure. But that sure hasn't stopped Andrew from seeking adventure. His disability has given him the opportunity to travel the world and participate in sports through a local organization called Athletes in Tandem, where athletes like Andrew get to compete in cycling, running, and even swimming events using adaptive equipment.
We all have the ability to help one another, right? And so, I believe that's my purpose, and I believe it's really everybody's purpose, whether they realize it 24/7 or they just have that inspiration to do it when they feel it. It's all good. And, if that's how we all behaved all the time, it would just be a fine place to live in this world.
When Andrew first met Dennis at a local health club workshop, their differences were clear. Andrew was wheelchair bound, but there was one thing they had in common.
And our relationship has, blossomed just because our common like of music, and specifically the Beatles. I was born and raised on them, and he's like encyclopedia smart about all the little details.
They're the greatest band in the world.
2020 was supposed to bring Andrew and Dennis to the home of the Beatles, Liverpool, England, where they would compete in a race and tour the town. But that trip has been postponed until next year. And while Andrew waits, he continues to mark milestones, including recently taking 2 steps on his own. His mindset, well, it's just like the Beatles song. Here comes the sun, and it's all right.
I am proud of myself for that, because it took years of experience and training to get that far.
I think the most amazing thing about Andrew's story, Rachel, is the fact that he says he's grateful that he has cerebral palsy, which you don't hear that from a lot of people.
Absolutely. It's great that he has a positive attitude with all of this happening. Well, Rams, that is all the time that we have for tonight. Thank you for being a part of our show and helping us make history and to continuing to break barriers. We'll be back next semester on February 17th. But until then, stay updated on sports and all things Laced Up by following us on Instagram at Laced Up TV. I'm Rachel Hallam.
And I'm Sydney Wicker. Tune back in tomorrow for more news from the people you know and for the latest updates and more information on CSU's canceled game. Until next time, keep changing the game and have a great night, Rams.